Welcome to the Bros of Gardening. I'm your host, Mike Westphal, joined always by my co-host, Daniel Van Dyke. How you doing?
I'm good, bud. We're like I say every time. For the past couple ones, I'm saying we're getting there, and we are finally. This will be our last podcast before the frost date here in the Tidewater area, and so I'm super excited. We got a lot of customers who are excited for us to be there. We've been holding off on a few plantings and stuff. Some of those more tender plantings that we've been waiting on. So our customers are excited, we're excited, and we're ready to roll.
Sweet. Yep. It is spring. How you doing, Alex?
I'm doing good.
Alex will help guide us through this hot topic today, which is solutions to moles and voles. It is a loaded question. It's a loaded topic, and we'll get right into it. And we've got a great solution, so that's a good thing.
So, Mike, you are the expert on all things moles and voles, so you'll be kicking this off. It seems a lot of people struggle actually identifying the difference between what a mole and a vole is. Can you explain that for our listeners?
Yeah, I got a very easy one, which is mole starts with an M, is a meat eater. Vole starts with a V, is a vegetarian. So moles eat insects in your soil. Voles eat the root systems of your plants. So if you've ever walked up to your flower bed or something, or especially like right after you plant something, and you're like, what happened? Like this plant is either sucked down into the earth, or you walk up and it's dead or looks bad and you just touch it and it falls over. There's no root system. You've got voles, which can really be extremely costly to a landscaper, to a gardener. Voles are like the worst thing. Moles, you don't typically see. And you don't typically see voles either. So voles look more like a field mouse. Okay. Moles look kind of like you would think a small gopher or mole would look like. It's underground. They have hardly any eyes. They do have eyes, but they don't come above the surface very often, if at all, unless your dog or cat happens to dig them up. But moles are in your lawn, typically more in the lawn area, and they're eating things like earthworms and ground crickets and beetles and grubs. Grubs are like their main food source. So we're probably going to talk about that as I get into the solution a little bit more. But grubs are what they're usually eating because one grub equals 10 earthworms. Do they like earthworms? Yeah. But do they like a grub? Because I can only have to find one to satisfy my need versus 10 earthworms. So the moles are going to be in your lawn area. Typically, they love to dig. Once they get into your yard, then the voles don't like to dig as much. They follow their footsteps and then divert into your flower beds and start to eat your plants. So it's kind of a vicious cycle.
Yeah, really does sound like it.
Which I'll talk about more and more.
So, Daniel, have you ever had any experiences in dealing with them at a job site? And if so, what remedies have you had to navigate with them before?
So, yeah, obviously, I mean, we run into it a ton. The reason it is such a hot button topic is because everybody, I think, can say they've had some experience with them. Right. And take on different forms. Usually our concern is kind of what Mike was alluding to is with the plant material. But, a lot of times you go walking through somebody's yard and you feel those mole tracks. Yep. You can feel those tunnels and you step on them and they kind of crush down. And while, you love to aerate the soil before, you don't want to do it like that. And so, I would say, so there's one that comes to mind that, again, Mike kind of helped us figure out a remedy. Was this huge property that we were doing, and it was a lot of wide open area. And these people wanted to not only get rid of, they were more interested in getting rid of the moles and the voles. A lot of times what we're trying to do, which I'll get into later, is with voles, we're trying to protect the plant material. But for this, he was truly trying to eradicate the problem across his entire property. We were laying sod. We were doing all these different things. So what we did is we did a combination of a repellent and milky spore. Okay. And so milky spore is a product, again, that Mike can tell you all about. And that kind of attacks, I believe, the grubs. And they're trying to get rid of the grubs, which, like he said, that is the food source for the moles, which is usually the beginning of your issue. Because once they start doing their tunnels, that's when the voles come behind them. And then we also did the repellent as kind of a combo attack to try to, not only get rid of the moles, but I think milky spore, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is more of a long-term process. It's not going to be an instant gratification where you put it down and then all of a sudden, hey, they're gone and you fixed your problem. So you do the Repel-X product to get rid of the moles and voles initially, chase them out, and then you do the long-term solution was the milky spore. And when I say this is a huge property, I don't know if you remember when we did this. I mean, we ordered a pallet of this stuff because it took us multiple guys for the entire day to go and just, you use it. They have these shake sticks that that's how you apply it. I mean, you should have seen these guys just walking a grid to try to make sure we were applying it in the right way. But it worked and it did. And, we maintained that property still. And so It worked out really well. But for me, the biggest one that we use, and we use it fairly consistently rather, is soil perfector.
Yep.
And so really what that is it's a way to try to protect the root system as much as possible from the voles. Because again, for what we do in the residential design and build industry, we don't do as much with the lawns as we do. We're really focusing on, greenscapes, plantings, and stuff like that. And so what it essentially is, when you dig your hole, we always talk about different ways to prep the soil. Well, this is just another layer to that prep. And so you add in all your compost, your other nutrients, but then you add in this soil perfector, and essentially what it is little jagged rocks.
Okay.
And as the voles tunnel towards the plants, they hit this, you dig the hole twice the size of the root ball, and then you mix these rocks in around the root ball. And so as they tunnel towards the roots, they eat these little rocks and it cuts them up, they digest it, and I believe it kills them.
Well,
right?
it can. Typically, it just acts as a barrier, if anything. They can't get through it, so they tend to not go into it. So therefore, it protects really the heart and the main part of the root system.
Really discourages them.
So it's basically, you can take that. So if somebody, when I always tell my designers when they're out there, and if somebody mentions moles and voles, then right off the bat, we're going to include soil perfector without even them asking. It's a little bit of an added expense, but it's protecting their investment long term. And again, because I can't tell you how many times people are like, this stuff died, and we walk out there and it's like toppled over because they just truly don't have a root system. I don't care how dead something is, it's not just going to fall over. I mean, if its roots are still in the ground, it's going to stay upright.
Yeah.
And so if it's toppled over, or like Mike said, it'll almost look like it's been sucked down into the ground, they're just eating that root system. And it happens a lot of times when the young, and there's certain plants that have a more, meaty root system that are going to be more susceptible to it, but they will eat a lot of different things. And
pretty much everything.
So if you do think if you know you have moles are the easy one to see because you see the tunnels, you feel the tunnels. Yeah. But then chances are there's a good chance you're going to have voles as well. And so if you have those moles and vole issues, you can take certain steps to protect your plants specifically. And then there's other things you can do to actually try to get rid of them. So it's kind of a multi-step process that we recommend using to really try to not only eradicate the problem, but also protect your plants and your investment.
Now, do voles leave behind specific plant damage that's different than moles, or is there a way I can go out to my yard and be like, oh man, I got voles here?
So voles are almost going to be exclusively in your planting areas. So your flower beds, maybe your vegetable garden and your foundation planting, whereas moles are going to be really more in your lawn area. Not to say that they won't live in mulch, but what they're after is the insects. So moles aren't going to create any plant damage, really.
Got it.
The only mole damage that you're going to have is to your lawn area typically. Because a tunnel, if a mole happens to be in your flower bed, and it happens to tunnel by a plant, it can create an air pocket that could dry out the plant a little bit faster. But typically, that's not going to create a ton of plant damage. Whereas voles will kill plants. I mean, just straight up eat an entire root system and kill the plant, or will eat a portion of the root system, which will harm a portion of the plant. So voles are the only ones really creating plant damage, whereas moles are creating a nuisance for you when you're mowing your grass. It can cause lawn damage, but even then, it's really probably the grubs that are causing the lawn damage, not the moles.
Gotcha. And now, Mike, what is your preferred methods on removing moles and voles from the landscape?
Okay, so now we kind of understand what's happening here, right? We've got grubs, which are Japanese beetle grubs typically. Japanese beetles are the most reproducing beetle out there, which their larva stage is the grub. So Japanese beetles are the ones that are laying eggs in your soil, and one Japanese beetle will lay 50 eggs. So let's say you got 10. I mean, 10's not that many, right? It's 500 grubs.
Plenty.
So if it's 100 Japanese beetles, now you got 5,000. So all of a sudden it can multiply very, very quickly. So what you're trying to do is prevent that, and that's what milky spore comes in. So Daniel's right. Milky spore is your long-term solution. The reason it's your long-term solution is it lasts 10 to 15 years. So it's a beneficial bacteria, goes into the soil, and as the grub ingests this spore, this bacteria, it builds inside the grub and eventually kills the grub. And it's kind of gross, but you don't see it. It happens underneath the soil. It pops. So it kind of explodes under soil. But what happens in that is the bacteria spreads. So now you got more milky spore, more bacteria. And the more that you build up over time, it takes about 2 years really to kind of eradicate the grub problem. then you've built up this huge population of this bacteria in your soil, which only hurts Japanese beetle grubs. So it's not going to hurt anything else. There's lots of beneficial bacteria out there. I don't want everybody hears bacteria and thinks bad. This is a good bacteria. So now you've eliminated their food source. You've kind of upset the moles. You kind of, you've ticked them off. So now let's repel them. And that's where the Repel X repellent comes in. And the reason I like Repel X the best is because it can last up to 6 months. I can't guarantee that. Almost all repellents have about a 6 to 8 week time frame that they say it will last. But I've had very good success with this lasting longer because of the granular. So the granular is a recycled newspaper granular. It absorbs the castor oil. So castor oil is what gets in the fur, in their food. They don't like the taste of it. They don't like the way it makes them feel. And it just kind of repels them. So it gets them out of the area. So castor oil is your main ingredient. There's other ingredients in there, but this recycled newspaper granular absorbs it, which means it's a little bit more of a slow release. So whenever you look at like any kind of, repellent or even like a weed preventer, they're going to spray the weed preventer on a carrier, which most likely is broken up pieces of granite or just little rocks or sawdust or peanut hulls or lots of different options out there. But what happens is the liquid just washes off. That's the carrier, gets it into your soil, and then it works. Well, the recycled newspaper granite actually absorbs it, so it's a little bit more of a slow release, like a fertilizer would be. It's not a fertilizer. You can apply both of these at the same time. There's really no restrictions. There's a couple different things we would want you to do with the repellent, like applying it in phases. So you want to do it like one section of your yard, and then the next section, then the next section. You want to kind of break it up because you need to give them a free space to run to. If you treat the entire area, they can get stuck in that area, and then there's no safe place for them to go. So you do want to apply it in stages, but the milky spore you're right. There's lots of different products out there. We carry the concentrated milky spore, which means it's a one and done application. So you apply the milky spore, you get rid of the mole's main food source, the grub. You tick them off. Now you repel them, you move them to a neighbor that you don't like, or you move them somewhere else, and you can move them across the street. You can move them into a wooded area. They can dig pretty deep because those tunnels that you're walking on are just their feeding tunnels. They have a permanent structure built much deeper in the soil where it's got their permanent tunnel and living quarters and food storage areas and different types of things. So they've built a lot of that. They don't want to leave it. So that's where I get to the hard part, which is you got to stay after it with this repellent. So once you do the milky spore, one and done. Don't have to think about it again. You've eradicated the grub problem, which is great for your plants too, because you won't have as many Japanese beetle issues. But now you just got to keep on repelling them. So repel them, and hopefully they eventually get the hint and they'll leave. My first home took a year. I was done. They never really came back. Every once in a while, I'd see them kind of creeping back in from my neighbors. And so then I'd spray a barrier. There's liquid forms of this repellent as well. But then my newer home that I bought, about 7-8 years ago now, it took about 4 years to get rid of them. So you just got to stay after it. It's unfortunate, but if you're trying to enjoy your yard, there's nothing worse, especially if you use a push mower. Going out to mow your grass and getting stuck in the mole tunnels. I mean, they're just a nuisance and they're a big problem this year. And it all comes, it's this vicious cycle that I mentioned. It's grubs. They're Japanese beetle grubs. They're bad. You don't want them in your yard. They invite the moles in. The moles eat the grubs. And then the voles don't like to dig as much, so they come into the moles tunnels and divert off into your flower beds, and it's just a horrible cycle. The repellent works on the voles too, so you can put the repellent into the flower beds, into your vegetable garden, wherever. So it's a great safe solution. It doesn't require any kind of poisons or any of those different things. It's safe for dogs and pets. It's completely organic. That's why we love this solution. It's super easy. You just got to stay after it.
Right. Well, now there has been stuff I've seen online where people have come up with their own
as always,
home remedies to handle this. I think I saw somebody had mentioned chewing gum at one point in time.
Yep.
Have you heard of any of these, and do they actually work, or would you say avoid them altogether?
Yes, I've heard of all of them. Juicy fruit. Juicy fruit is the one. Human hair is another one. Peanut butter on a mouse trap. The vibrating things that you stick all throughout the yard that make a noise. The problem is you hear the noise.
Yeah.
I was the buyer, so I'm not the buyer anymore. But I hated moles and voles. I've had them in my yard, so I bought everything. The poison worms, the rat poison, the traps, these vibrating stakes, all of these different things that you can try using in the yard. None of them really worked. I wanted to throw everything that I possibly could at them. So I tried, and I'll help customers. But killing them is probably the hardest thing, which the juicy fruit is what they said could, hopefully kill them because they couldn't digest it or something like that. I never saw it work. And also, how do you know how many you're actually getting?
Yeah.
I mean, how do you just don't know how many you have in your soil. You might think you have 100 and you might only have 10. You might think you have 10, you have 100. So you just never really know. And so trying to kill something when you're not quite sure if you're actually effectively doing it because the tunnels aren't going anywhere is a difficult proposition. And that's why I say just get rid of them. This is a safe solution. You don't have to worry about all of these weird home remedies that sometimes work, sometimes don't. One of my favorite ones was I was at a show buying stuff for moles and voles and different solutions. Yeah. And it was a fitting that you put on the back of your car on the exhaust that had a garden hose fitting that went onto it, which basically all that was doing was just pumping carbon dioxide into your soil. So not good for your soil, right? Might have put them to sleep permanently, but I don't know if it actually works because you just never know. Right. You just don't know if they're actually going to sleep. There's no way to find them. So it's a difficult situation, but that's why I like the safe organic one.
So an interesting one for me, and I'll again defer to you, Mike, is so castor oil. I know you mentioned that one. So what makes it different with castor oil as a home remedy versus the main ingredient being castor oil of some of the repellents and stuff like that?
Yeah, great point. I mean, castor oil is a thick substance, so you've got to dilute it, and then you've got to figure out the dilution rate and all those things. And plus, I don't know where you buy straight 100% castor oil. So that's why I like the repellents. They have it already pre-diluted for you. So most of the time you're going to see in a liquid form of castor oil, it's got a hose-in sprayer. It's going to mix it for you, so you don't have to think about it.
Right.
And it's going to be 20% or 70% or whatever it might be. And what's nice is castor oil is great and a main ingredient to get these things out of your yard. But there's other things that they can put in there, like white pepper oil, cinnamon. There's lots of different things that they'll put in there just to kind of help with the smell thing and keep it changed up and kind of different for these mammals that just don't like it. So, if you want to figure out how to make your own concoction, go for it. But then you've got to put it in some sort of sprayer. Is it going to clog up the sprayer? We used to sell 100% castor oil in a hose-end sprayer, and people always complained about it clogging up. So now we don't do that anymore, and we sell easy to apply kind of solutions, and that's why I just say take the guessing game out of it and take the hunt for 100% castor oil out of it.
It's
and
just done for you.
Go to your local garden center. They're going to have some sort of repellent that most likely is castor oil based.
Gotcha. Well, it's funny, you mentioned the sonar or whatever, the ones that make that noise. And I remember, we had just finished doing this backyard installation, and we had done this big patio, and they were trying to get rid of their moles and voles. So we were sitting there. And every 15 seconds you just hear and it's just, I'm like, man, that would get really it got old for me in 5 minutes while I was just doing a walkthrough, let alone living in it. And so like I said, there's a lot of different things, a lot of different I've seen or heard people try. But that's why I've always, when we had the big issue and we've had problems with it, Soil Perfector is more for the voles like we talked about, but that milky spore and repellent combination that Mike, teaches, that's the one that we've had the most success with by far.
For sure. I mean, we have plenty of videos on our YouTube channel going over moles and voles that you've covered extensively. So if you have any questions or any interests, go check those out.
Yeah. I mean, I've taught the class, I don't know, let's say probably at least 5 times a year, so over 100 times.
Bit of an expert.
It's been a hobby of mine and something that I've become an expert at. And so I've been through all of it. I've done all the solutions. This goes back to what I always say: listen to your neighbors and your friends and people that have dealt with a situation before. And this one I've dealt with personally, and so I can give personal anecdotes. And I know that this solution works. It's safe. It's effective. It takes some time. Have some patience, unfortunately, but it does work very well. And so trust from my experience that it does work.
Will do.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks, guys. This was a short, easy one because we just wanted to get right to the heart of the problem, get the solution out to you.
Yep.
And so thank you all for listening and watching. If you're watching on YouTube, wherever you're listening to your podcast, rate, review, subscribe to our channel. And next week, we're going to be talking about everything you need to know about herbs. So Daniel mentioned this a couple weeks ago. It's that season. We're starting to think about, cooking out and those types of things. So, so we're going to talk all about herbs, and then we'll go from there. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.